Good evening, everyone. My name is Jasmine Fiorini. I am the project manager for CyberSafe. Today, we are here to present our proposed capstone project, Cybersecurity Policy Framework for Calvary Christian Academy. Our goal is to equip the Academy with structured and actionable policies to secure their newly rebuilt network and support their mission of education and community service. Calvary Christian Academy is a cornerstone of Chula Vista, California, providing education since 1987. As they rebuilt their network, the lack of structured cybersecurity policies has created vulnerabilities. Our project will address this by developing a comprehensive cybersecurity policy framework. This framework will provide consistent guidance, mitigate risk, and enhance compliance. The policies will be aligned with industry best standards, ensuring the Academy's network remains secure, adaptable, and cost-effective. Calvary Christian Academy is dedicated to providing a safe learning environment. However, the lack of structured cybersecurity policies leaves their network vulnerable to threats such as unauthorized access and data breaches. Without clear guidelines, operational inefficiencies and potential disruptions could jeopardize their mission. Our project will address these challenges head on. Our needs assessment includes stakeholder interviews, documentation reviews, and benchmarking against industry standards. Regular feedback loops will ensure our recommendations are practical, relevant, and aligned with the Academy's goals. This approach guarantees the final policies will address their unique challenges while promoting long-term success. Our key deliverables are the four core policies: data protection, network management, account management, and access control. These policies will provide clear, actionable guidelines for safeguarding the Academy's infrastructure. The scope of our project focuses exclusively on policy creation, excluding direct implementation and procurement of new hardware or software. This approach ensures the Academy can adopt our recommendations within their current resources. Lastly, we've made some assumptions, including the availability of stakeholders for input and the operational readiness of the rebuilt infrastructure. These conditions ensure our policies are practical, effective, and ready for immediate use.
Hello, everyone. I am Alex Maestas, and here we will be discussing the target audience analysis for Cavalry Christian Academy. We will start with the demographics, which is going to consist of the lone part-time IT administrator who is new to the school, as well as the volunteers from the church who are able to occasionally offer their time and expertise. Their ages range quite a bit from the new IT admin who is in his early 30s to some of the volunteers who are in their mid-50s. Now, onto the psychographics. There are varying areas of expertise and knowledge that these individuals bring to the IT aspect of the school. The new IT admin has primarily worked with Windows, while on the other hand, some of the volunteers bring experience with Linux and Apple systems. Because these systems have their different methodologies, the administrators will likely bring with them a different approach to management and servicing. Lastly, for the target audience analysis are the different personas. For the current IT admin, he brings a new set of eyes to look at the current infrastructure and processes, which could benefit in catching things that may have been looked over. With the volunteers, they bring a great mix of knowledge and many years of experience that can be helpful when complex issues arise. Additionally, their familiarity with the existing infrastructure and processes is helpful when we consider that the current IT admin is new and there is a historically high turnover rate.
Hello, I'm Joseph Santamaria, and I'll be going over the SWOT analysis for Calvary Christian Academy, starting with their strengths. Calvary Christian Academy is segmented into 5 major VLANs. Those VLANs consist of their wireless network, wired network, guest network, and their sound booth and cameras for their church services. Calvary Christian Academy also has the original network administrator working on the project. This IT built the very first network for the school, so he is familiar with the layout and structure of the prior network. An IT from a different school district has a hand in the project as well, which can provide for more growth for the school, using the other school's district as an example. Calvary Christian Academy has support help from the vendors of their network equipment, Fortinet, that will assist them in any trouble tickets that they cannot resolve themselves. Some of the weaknesses that Calvary Christian Academy has is inadequate access management. Although the main IT is helping with the school, he is not employed there. Yet he still has access to miscellaneous applications such as thermostat control and the camera system. Lack of administrative oversight. The school is used to having one IT, and there is no specific administration accounts. All prior ITs use a default administration account. Making changes and not knowing who did it can lead to serious problems within a network. Unfamiliarity with new systems. The school ran on a sonic firewall that connected to Cisco switches, and the school is now migrating to full Fortinet equipment, where the commands and setup are completely different, causing them to tread carefully when making changes to their network, which can result in slower production. Unmanaged rogue devices. The school currently has 21 access points, and others have fallen off and need to be readopted into the network. Rogue access points can lead to man-in-the-middle attacks. Limited financial resources. Calvary Christian Academy is a nonprofit organization which heavily relies on funding from the congregation members and tuition to meet their financial needs, leaving the IT department scarce for funds, which can lead to falling behind the curve in terms of IT equipment and services. And lastly, insufficient IT staffing. No full-time IT. Calvary Christian Academy only has one payrolled IT who's only working part-time, roughly 20 hours a week. If there is a network that has students, teachers, and faculty that use them for 40 plus hours a week, then it needs an IT present to make sure the network runs smoothly and fixes any issues that arises. Some of the threats that Calvary Christian Academy face are security vulnerabilities. Rogue access points can lead to eavesdropping and important data being leaked. Some of the data they hold there are HIPAA files, financial data, and student information. Another threat is the lack of on-site support. The network can break when no IT is present on campus, leading to downtime. Lack of standardization. The school does not run on a specific baseline for educational networks, instead just does basic setups of the school network. And lastly, for threats is lack of familiarity and training. A new install with unfamiliar equipment can lead to downtime within the network, if not trained slash educated properly on the equipment prior to managing it. Some of the opportunities that Calvary Christian Academy has is community engagement for funding. Calvary Christian Academy can run multiple fundraisers to bring in some funds for their IT department. Uh, Educational technology grants. The school can look into educational technology grants for them to get the proper equipment and upgrades they need within the IT department. Another opportunity is expanding their IT staff. Calvary Christian Academy can look for another part-time IT to fill the other 4 hours of the day to make sure the network is monitored and aided during all of the working hours. And lastly, for their opportunities is network security assessments. Calvary Christian Academy has the opportunity to let CyberSafe come in and analyze their network for us to make suggestions to better harden their network from cyber attacks. Next slide, please. So from our SWOT analysis, we were able to come up with potential projects. Some of those potential projects are network access control implementation, where the objective would be to enhance the access control to ensure only authorized personnel manage and access the network. Next is rogue access point detection and mitigation. And our objective there would be to identify and mitigate rogue access points to improve wireless network security. Next is our network hardening project. An objective would be to establish a baseline security configuration to protect against cyber threats. Next is administrative account standardization. The objective would be to improve accountability and tracking of administrative actions through standardized account management. And network documentation project. And the objective would be to maintain detailed records of network configurations and assets to improve troubleshooting and scalability. Next slide, please. Here's the mind map of our SWOT analysis. Just shows the weaknesses, strengths, threats, and opportunities all listed out in a chart. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Kyle Restorza, and I'll be talking about the possible solutions and alternatives from the weaknesses that was pointed out by my colleague Joseph. There are definitely areas where Calvary Christian Academy can improve on. One such point is going to be single points of failure. Upon initial look around the school, they only have one internet service provider. So if that goes down, there is downtime where they would require the internet service provider to bring their network back up. Another one is they only have one hardware firewall, so there is no redundancy in here as well. So if that hardware firewall fails, there is going to be possible issues with connectivity. One dedicated IT employee, accidents happen, and it cannot plan ahead, especially when you have one IT employee and he is the only dedicated person working on the entire IT and network for Calvary Christian Academy. There are also no backup or disaster recovery plan in place. So this is terrible time if a disaster, and seeing with recent fires spreading in the border, they are not too far off from possible disaster. Another possible area of um, solution for alternatives is their IoT devices. It is unclear whether or not their configurations are based on best practices or if they're set up just for access and ensuring that it provides some sort of ease for administrators within the school. Another area is that it's possible that some of them have not been updated in their firmware and their software. And as my colleague was mentioning, access control within these IoT devices definitely needs to be ironed out as well. Next slide, please. Lack of documentation, no configuration or management documents. This is important, especially for high turnover on IT employees and for volunteers. You are essentially coming into a black box and you are trying to figure out how the system works without documentation. They also need to implement disaster recovery. There has to be some sort of documentation that they can follow when responding to disasters. Also, with change management, they're with multiple people who are not dedicated workers for Calvary Christian Academy. Change management is a must. The changes made to any configuration, file systems, or security changes need to be documented so that there is no second guessing as to why it was implemented in the first place and what future volunteers are going to be looking for when they are um, helping the school out with their IT services. There also is no onboarding or offboarding for Calvary Christian Academy, no onboarding, offboarding policy. Just makes it incredibly hard for anybody who is willing to volunteer and just no documentation to go off of. And with that, there is no continuity on security implementation. So even if we were to provide them with documentation, it is up to the IT personnel of Calvary Christian Academy to ensure that the recommendations are implemented within the budget constraints that they are currently working with. IT support, one dedicated part-time employee has already been stated by my colleague. There is no internal IT structure or chain of command in more well-funded organizations. There is a chain of command where in an event of a outage, disaster, there is a specific chain of command which has to be followed, and certain stakeholders that are sitting there that need to be informed and involved in the recovery process. And most of their support is based on volunteers. And lastly, one single administrative account. This is not going off of cybersecurity best policies. Um, volunteers who come in to help with the network should not be using the same account that the administrator of the Calvary Christian Academy is using. With that, there is no traceability on who was making changes. Essentially, it is just a free-for-all, and it is up to guesswork if something isn't configured properly. It is not in the best case scenario for how a organization should be run. Password policy, it is also unsure whether or not password policies are even in place for the administrative account. With high turnovers, um, if an employee gets let go and they feel the need to go back in there and cause harm to the organization, it is very well possible if those passwords have not been changed. Um, and there's no traceability for configuration changes that is important, and that kind of goes back into the change management policy as well. And that is it for me. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. This is Stephen Lees. I'll be covering integrated CYB solutions. First is software. Encryption software dealing with sensitive information requires for a more secured approach. Having the ability to encrypt data will reduce the risk of data being leaked or breached. Files that include social security numbers, financial data, addresses, and phone numbers always should be encrypted. Hardware, they have a upgraded firewall system to have the latest protection for the network, allow for more efficient flow of information to and from the network. Next is the introduction of switches, which are important because they will isolate the equipment and devices from one another. As far as the network goes, strong password system, one that comprises of several characters, numbers, and special characters to make it more difficult. And having strong passwords is always necessary. Multi-factor authentication process to strengthen the security process, ensure accounts are being logged into by the right personnel. Security, regular trainings to be conducted and cover topics like phishing attacks, social engineering tactics, and the importance of strong password and data security best practices. Data loss prevention to prevent sensitive student, staff, and financial data from leaving the network. And management policies that can be adapted and followed are password policies, ensuring that both students and staff do not have weak, old, or repeated passwords, ensuring that files are backed up and protected in the event an attack occurs or the network goes offline. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our risk analysis. Our risks include resistance to new policies and the possibility of outdated or complete lack of documentation. Additionally, any changes to the network during our project could impact policy relevance. To mitigate these risks, we will maintain regular communication with stakeholders, use a risk register, and adapt policies to align with their evolving needs. The outcome of this project is a secure, effective, and cost-efficient network environment for the Academy. Our policies will reduce risk, improve management, and provide a foundation for long-term security. By leveraging their current resources, we aim to ensure a high return on investment with minimal financial burden. In summary, our cybersecurity policy framework will provide Calvary Christian Academy with a tailored solution to secure the rebuilt network. The framework will ensure enhanced security, operational efficiency, and long-term sustainability. At this time, we invite your feedback to finalize our project and proceed to phase 2 of our capstone. Thank you all for your attention. We're now happy to address any questions.